Do you need a landscaping job tackled? Keen Landscaping is a family-owned and operated full-service landscaping company based in Dallas, Texas. Anything from property restoration and tree pruning or removal to landscape design, construction, and installation, Keen covers it all. They're also the official landscape company of the Dallas Stars. Learn more at keenlandscaping.com. Again, that's Keane landscaping.com. Welcome to Parker's MMA Show. If you want to learn about all things going down in the fight world, you've come to the right place. Each episode, your host Parker Keane will take a deeper dive into the always entertaining world of sanctioned fist fighting. Now here's your host, Parker Keane.
Parker's MMA Show back in action today. We got a double dose of interviews. We're going to do our regular show, which will be episode 49. And then for our big episode 50, we have special guest Frank Mir coming on. So, Billy, let's get into episode 49 here. We got a lot to talk about. UFC 253, the fight nights we're going to recap, and then we're going to recap Bellator. Like always, everyone like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. Billy, take it away.
All right, man. So where do you want to get started? How about UFC 253? Let's get into it.
Let's do it. All right, so our guy, the Polish Power, Jan Blachowicz, is the new light heavyweight title holder. Billy, you need to apologize publicly for sleeping on the Polish Power. He sent me a DM that said he was very disappointed with you, and if you ever make your way to Poland, he's coming for you. So, Billy, what did you think of Jan's performance against Dom Reyes?
I was really impressed, man. I thought, they talk about the Polish Power. We got to see the Polish Power, man. I mean, that left kick that he ripped to the body, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything bruise faster than that kick to the body. It clearly stopped Dom's movement. And then, we said it, that right hand, man, that right hand is lethal on Jan Blachowicz. I was super impressed by him. What did you think?
No, same thing. I mean, that body kick, I think he hit him in that same spot 2 or 3 times, but it looked like Dom Reyes got shot with a shotgun. I mean, I've never seen a body kick bruise so brutally, so quickly. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't, Jan Blachowicz, I think people kind of overlook him because he doesn't seem like the most athletic. He's not the fastest. He's not the most explosive. He doesn't have a crazy, knockout highlight reel like some other of these guys, but I mean, he's a freaking grinder, and he's just a guy. He's 37 years old now that's just been hammering away, fighting tough guys, and he got that belt. So, yeah, I thought it was awesome. It was just kind of a special moment. It was refreshing to see someone outside of John Jones have that belt, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, in my opinion. So, what do you make of Jan finally getting the belt at 37 years old, and is there anything that, or any previous champions you can compare him to?
Yeah, for me, it reminds me of Michael Bisping, right? I think it's kind of like this career achievement. It's a guy who I've been following Jan Blachowicz since he was fighting in KSW. I mean, it's a MMA obsessed country. He's the first male champion from Poland in the UFC. It's great to see because it's a country that I think gets really overlooked. I mean, we talk about Brazil and we talk about Japan, but Poland is one of the biggest countries in the world for MMA, in my opinion. And Jan Blachowicz is going to be the face of it there, along with Joanna Jędrzejczyk for quite some time, in my opinion.
Did you see the video of Joanna going crazy? I love that. That was awesome.
Oh, yeah. Love that.
All right, so now that the 205 belt has moved to Jan Blachowicz, what do you think's next for Jan, and what did you make of his call-out of John Jones after John Jones had, pretty much publicly stated that he's done at 205 and he's moving up to heavyweight?
I like the call-out, right? It's the greatest of all time. It's the guy who gave up the belt. I like the call-out. I think stylistically that's kind of a difficult fight for Jan Blachowicz. I think John is a guy who likes to fight on the outside. He's got really good footwork. He's really fast. But I thought that about Dom Reyes too. And Jon Jones, Jan Blachowicz really hurt Dom Reyes. So shows what I know. And then in terms of what's next, I think Thiago Santos is going to end up being next. Thiago has a knockout win over Jan Blachowicz. He had a very close fight with Jon Jones. They can't seem to get this fight with Glover Teixeira together. I think they just skip over the Teixeira fight and put Thiago right in a title shot with Jan Blachowicz. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Jan, he's not getting any younger. He's going to look to turn around pretty quick. He didn't take any damage in the Dom Reyes fight. So, yeah, I'm totally down to see him fight, Santos. And I'll be interested to see Santos come back, too, because, he put on, in my opinion, I think the best performance anyone's ever put on against Jon Jones on, 2 bum legs. So I'll be interested to see how he comes back. And I think that's a great matchup. That's a banger right there. So, yeah, I'm down with that. What is the holdup on the Glover Teixeira and Santos fight?
So they both got COVID at different times, right?
Oh
so it's been canceled now twice.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't know if they've rescheduled it yet.
So moving forward to the Jon Jones fight, if Jon Jones does decide to come back down and defend his belt or get his belt back, because he's really got 2 guys, talking shit. He's got Israel talking shit about moving up to 205 or moving up to heavyweight, and then he's got Jan Blachowicz, that's calling him out. If Jon decides to move back down, how do you see Jan faring against him?
I think that's a tough stylistic fight for Jan. I think Jon Jones is so good with his kickboxing footwork, being able to stay on the outside, being able to avoid power shots. I think Jon always says he's not worried about powerful guys. He's worried about fast guys. So I just think Jan is just – I think it's a bad matchup for him, to be honest. But like I said, I thought Dom Reyes was a pretty bad matchup for Jan Blachowicz, and Jan Blachowicz put on a masterclass. So maybe this is just a totally different Polish power we're seeing.
I'm going to ask you this one next, but do you see any chance that Israel Adesanya moves up and tries to take that belt from Jan Blachowicz?
No, I do not. I think Israel Adesanya is interested in Jon Jones and Jon Jones alone. I don't think he's actually interested in the light heavyweight belt.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty much it from the light heavyweight fight. Oh, let's talk about Dom Reyes real quick. Obviously, very, very tough break. To go 5 rounds with, in our opinion, the greatest fighter of all time, and a lot of media and stuff thought that Dom actually won that fight, to get knocked out, pretty viciously by Jan Blachowicz. That's a big setback, in the rankings and mentally. Where do you see Dom Reyes going from here?
I'd really like to see him actually take Thiago Santos' spot and fight Glover Teixeira. I think that's an exciting fight. I think if Dom wins that, he's right back in that kind of top contender category at light heavyweight. I think it makes sense for Teixeira. If Teixeira gets that win, he's no question the number 1 contender. So that's a fight I want to see, Glover Teixeira against Dom Reyes. How about you?
Yeah, I like to see him. Like, I like that Yuri Prohaskin. I like to see Prohaska. I like to see a matchup against him. I don't know, maybe someone in like 3 to 5, 3 to 6, something like that. I don't want to see Dom thrown right back in there to either one of those guys. And, two knockouts in a row is not a good thing. I think he needs to have a little bit of a rebuilding. He kind of hit the pinnacle with the Jon Jones fight, and then he gets knocked out here. I'd like to see him get a win against one of those kind of, 3 to 5 guys, and then get a kind of number 1 contender fight again. But, yeah, it's a tough break for him, but I think he'll be back. He's a young guy, still early in his career. He's got a lot left to bring. So I think we'll see him back. All right, let's move on to middleweight. So Israel Adesanya was the talk of the town, put on a dominant title defense against Paulo Costa. Man, what did you think about Israel's performance?
I've been telling you that this guy is special since the Derek Brunson fight, and this was a career-defining performance, in my opinion. to take apart a guy in Costa who, at the very least, even if you thought Israel was going to win this, everyone thinks and knows Costa is an absolute tank. He took shots from Yoel that most people can't handle. He comes for your neck, comes to knock you out, and Israel Adesanya made him look like an amateur out there. It was an absolute masterclass from Israel.
I agree. I think it's a statement win. When we look back on Israel's career 10 years from now, that's going to be a big landmark. The Paulo Costa fight, there was all this hype, and Israel just went out there and just outclassed him. I mean, Paulo Costa didn't get started. He looked confused at times. I mean, Israel just picked him apart. And I think you and I kind of both, that was what we thought would happen. I didn't think it would be that dominant. In my opinion, I've watched that fight like 3 or 4 times. That's one of the most dominant one-sided title fights I've ever seen, at least in recent history. So, yeah, that was huge. For Israel Adesanya, there's been a lot of talk after that big win about his placement on the pound-for-pound best fighter right now rankings. So I want to see, where do you currently put him in the top pound for pound, and then where does this win put him all time with the great middleweights: Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman, Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold?
Yeah, so pound for pound, first of all, I'm very much in favor of separating pound for pound women and pound for pound men. I think it's so hard to compare female MMA and male MMA at this point. So for men, I have John Jones 1, Khabib 2, Stipe number 3, and then Israel Adesanya. But if you're talking about fighters overall, I have Amanda Nunes 1, John Jones 2, Valentina 3, and then my male list the same starts, right? So I just think it's hard to compare. I would say Izzy's probably the number 4 pound for pound fighter on the male list right now.
Yeah, I think John Jones for me is number 1. It's crazy. You really think Amanda Nunes is above John Jones on the body of work? Are you kidding me?
She's a two-weight world champion who's beaten literally everyone in
both
but
divisions. You can never compare John Jones's career to Amanda Nunes. I don't think, but anyway, that's a discussion for another day. John Jones for me is number 1. I think Stipe is your clear-cut number 2. Just in my opinion, he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Most title defenses at UFC heavyweight. So I think he's number 2. And then I think Izzy and Khabib are similar, at number 3. Obviously completely different fighters. But, with that win, I think Izzy's right there in the top 3, with Khabib. So that's kind of my, top 3. I think him and Izzy are very, very close. As for the middleweights, I think that definitely solidifies him as the second best middleweight of all time. Obviously, Anderson Silva's got the ridiculous title defense streak, so he's got a lot of work to get to that level. But this is a huge statement win. This is huge for his career, his stardom, everything. This is a big win.
Yeah, I mean, as far as middleweights go, he's definitively the number 2 middleweight of all time. I don't think there's an argument anymore that it's Chris Weidman. I think it's very, very clearly Israel Adesanya, and it's likely to me that he will pass Anderson when all is said and done.
So, what did you think that this performance did for his stardom kind of globally? And did you have any problems with all the antics after the fight? The humping of Paulo Costa, the nut busting on his coach's face, Did you have any problem with that?
I don't have any problem with it because I don't find it personal or offensive. And Costa talked a bunch of smack. And prior to this fight, that's kind of what happens. If you're going to be disrespectful in the lead up, you're going to get disrespected when you lose. And I'm fine with that. To me, it didn't reach a Conor Khabib level or a Colby Covington, Tyron Woodley level, like where it was like actively disrespectful to the other fighter. And it was more about like, it was emasculating, right? And like Costa has said some things that are pretty problematic in terms of like masculinity. And it was kind of funny to see Izzy give him his just desserts there with like not only beating him, but humiliating him. As far as stardom goes, I think if you look at Australia, New Zealand, Izzy's the biggest star ever in MMA. If you look at Nigeria, Izzy is the biggest star ever in MMA.
Maybe in sports, like in general.
Not in sports.
Not
Let's
yet?
chill. Like,
Really?
not in Nigeria. Like, do you know how big soccer is in Nigeria?
I'm not big on,
dude.
Nigerian international soccer. Sorry, Billy.
Come on. Like, that's ridiculous. But like, I mean, globally in terms of MMA superstars, it's Conor and Khabib are at the top.
Yeah.
Jorge is the next by himself. Then probably Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
And then probably Israel Adesanya.
I agree.
And it's very possible that in the next 5 years, I think all four of those guys are kind of have less than 5 fights left, except Israel. So it's very possible that in the next 5 years, Israel Adesanya is the biggest star in the sport.
Yeah, I actually pulled a link that Tapology has, and they have basically a star ranking, and they had Khabib as number 1. You know, he's got, 1 to 2 fights left. You've got Jorge Masvidal, who's, 36? Maybe he has 2 to 3 fights left.
I think he's 38.
Is he? Is he that old? Wow.
Yeah, he's up there.
Nate Diaz is number 3 ahead of Conor. That's bizarre. But so Nate Diaz and Conor, you know, they have 3 to 4 fights left. Then you have Israel Adesanya. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you go down the list. You've got John Jones, Stipe, Cowboy, Amanda Nunes, Max Holloway, DC. Outside of Max Holloway, the whole top 10 is, you know, they got 2 to 3 years left max. So I do agree. I think Israel is going to be 4 to 5 years from now. He's going to be the biggest star globally in the sport. And the UFC's got to figure out how to capitalize on the African market. I think if they can figure out how to do that, he's going to be gigantic, and he's going to fight nothing but gigantic money fights. So, yeah, things are looking pretty sweet for Israel Adesanya. So, as far as matchups go, what do you want to see next for Izzy?
Well, what do I want to see? I want to see John Jones get the light heavyweight belt back and fight Israel Adesanya. I don't think that's happening next. I think next he's going to fight the winner of Jared Cannonier and Robert Whittaker. I just do. I think that's because I think John has to make a decision about what he wants to do with his career, because he can't go chasing this Israel super fight and also be moving up to heavyweight. He's got to make a choice. And ultimately, I think he picks heavyweight. So I think Israel is going to fight Cannonier next, would be my guess.
Don't sleep on Robert Whittaker, Billy. Don't you dare sleep on Robert Whittaker. No, I think he's got to fight the winner of that next. I think he's got one more fight at middleweight. And then I think John, I don't know. I think John has to move up, get a win. So John gets a win, and then it's the next fight for both of them. I think the time's now to make it. You can make it at light heavyweight. You can make it at heavyweight. You can do whatever you want. You know, Israel's a big guy, and, you know, I think he would be willing to move up to heavyweight and even fight. You could see him come in at like 200 pounds at heavyweight. I don't think he's a guy that needs to bulk up tremendously. He's going to do what he does and fight his style. So, yeah, I think that's a really big fight. Maybe you open 2021 with that. I would like to see that in a stadium. That would be a huge stadium fight if we can get over the COVID era. But, yeah, I think both of those guys have 1 to 2 fights before they match up with each other. For Paulo Costa, obviously, you know, he loses in probably the worst imaginable fashion to Israel Adesanya. I still think, you know, he's very competitive with everyone in the top 5 at middleweight. So where do you think he goes from here?
So there's 3 matchups that I have written down that I like for Costa next, right? I like the Yoel Romero rematch. That Uriah Hall Romero fight got scrapped. The Costa Romero fight was an absolute banger. And it was a controversial decision. It was.
Yeah, it was
so
close. It was really
I'm down
close.
for that rematch.
Yeah.
The second one I have, Derek Brunson, coming off a huge win over Edmund Shabazian. Looked better than he has in years. I really like that fight. The third one I have is kind of a wild card, but Khamzat Chimaev.
Sign me up, Billy.
This is the guy. This is the person everybody thinks is the guy. He's undefeated. He has a similar number of fights to Paulo Costa, actually.
Right.
Why not match him up? Why not? If Costa beats the guy who everyone thinks is the guy, he's right back in that contender conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm down for that fight.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with those. Any chance we see Costa move up to 205?
I don't think so. I don't know why he would. I don't think he has trouble. Like, he is a big guy, but I think he does make middleweight fairly comfortably. Yeah. I would be very worried if I was him about, his advantage is the power at middleweight. Those guys at 205 hit just as hard as he does. So I would not be rushing up to light heavyweight if I was him.
Okay, I agree. Any other notable performances from that card?
Shout out Brandon Royval. That was exciting, man.
That was the one I said to keep an eye on. That was the one.
Snatched the guillotine. That was exciting. That was a great fight. Shout out to him. That was awesome. I love the flyweights, man. I love what the flyweight division's looking like these days.
Yeah, not so boring anymore, huh, Dana White? All right, let's move on. So last week's card, Holly Holm was back in action against Irene Aldana. My opinion, I texted you this. I was like, this is the best we've seen Holly look since maybe the Ronda Rousey fight. She just looked smooth. She looked confident. She looked good, and she just worked Aldana. So what did you make of Holly's performance?
She was super aggressive. I mean, more aggressive than we've seen her in years. She moved forward with strikes. The takedowns looked great. She just looked like she had completely renewed confidence. It was so impressive to me because what we've seen out of Holly, even in her wins over the past few years, is someone who's moving backwards. It's a lot of footwork. It's kind of a lot of moving on the outside. She came right for Aldana and tried to knock her out, and that was super impressive to me.
I agree. That was freaking awesome. It was good to see her back, and it gives some life to that division too, to see kind of a reborn Holly Holm or a kind of a blast from the past with Holly Holm. It was awesome. I liked it. So for Holly, what do you think's next for her?
I want to see the rematch with Jermaine Durandamy.
Yeah,
I think that's the number one contender. Durandamy was also on that card. Looked fantastic, hitting a guillotine on Juliana Pena, who's a jiu-jitsu ace. I really want to see that fight. It was a controversial decision. There's bad blood there. I just think that's the perfect fight to set up one of those two women challenging in a rematch with Amanda Nunes for that 135 crown.
I agree. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Number one pound-for-pound fighter, Amanda Nunes.
Okay, let's take it easy, Billy. All right, so for Holly Holmes, is she still a top draw in women's MMA?
I think she's the number one draw in women's MMA.
Wow.
The ratings for this ESPN card were very good. She's a known name. If you talk to any casual fan, they know who she is. I ranked probably the 4 other women who I think are draws. I think it's probably Joanna, Amanda, Valentina, and Weili Zhang in the UFC, and then Cyborg and Bellator.
How dare you leave Rose off of there? Come on. Rose?
Rose is not a draw. What
Rose?
Is Rose a draw?
In my card, she's my favorite female fighter. So soft spot for Thug Rose. But no, I do. I think I agree. Like if I talk to any casual fan and they see the card on Instagram or whatever, they're Holly Holm's fighting this week. Holly Holm's fighting this week. she's a big name, and I think it's probably due to her longevity. You know how long she's been around. She's fought in big fights. Obviously, she's well known for the Ronda Rousey KO, but yeah, I agree. I think she's one of the biggest draws in women's MMA as well. All right, off of this card, wasn't the best of cards, but any other notable fights?
I got to shout out my guy, Carlos Condit, the original BMF, Carlos Condit. I mean, he looked like the Carlos Condit of old. He broke Court McGee's nose. He seems totally recommitted to the MMA game in his post-fight interviews. So here's my 3 matchups I want to see for Carlos Condit coming up next. Matt Brown, love that fight.
Yeah, that's a great fight.
Tyron Woodley, little rematch action, maybe a little revenge for the natural-born killer.
Right.
Or Nick Diaz. I think Carlos Condit is prime for a Nick Diaz fight. If Nick
I
comes
love
back,
that one. That's the one.
Which may or may not be happening.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on from that card. Bellator also had a card, and our guy, James Gallagher, gets another win. Dominant fashion. So what did you think of Gallagher's win, and what's next for him in Bellator?
Yeah, he fought a guy named Cal Eleanor. It's kind of the Tony versus Habib of the European MMA scene. It's 2 guys who were undefeated for a long time, top prospects, never could kind of put the fight together. And finally they got it. And Gallagher just looked dominant. I mean, just was able to get to the back, get a rear naked choke, first round. I don't think he's getting the title shot next. I think Sergio Pettis is the clear number 1 contender at 135 in Bellator. So I have 3 fights I would like to see Gallagher potentially take. I love the Ricky Bandejas rematch. He's coming off a loss to Sergio Pettis. I would love him to fight Patchy Mix, another jiu-jitsu guy who's beat Bandejas but just lost to Archuleta for the title. And then the third guy is maybe a little under the radar but just fought our guy, friend of the show, Cass Bell. Raytheon Stotts, really, really good bantamweight out in Bellator, who I would love to see Gallagher fight.
So give me your 135 top contenders right now in Bellator.
Juan Archuleta, number 1. He's the champion.
Spaniard.
He's the best. I'm going to put Sergio Pettis, number 2. I was really impressed with his performance against Bandejas.
He's looked really good since he moved to Bellator. Really good.
Really good. Third, I'm going with my guy, Patchy Mix. I thought that fight with Archuleta was really close. I thought definitely in the early rounds he was actually pretty close to finishing the fight, so that was pretty impressive to me. Fourth, I'm going to go with Raytheon Stotts. I think he's really under the radar. I think you should look up his fights on YouTube. He's really, really good. Cass Bell, who's an unbelievable fighter, had a tough time with him. Right. And then fifth, I got Bandejas. I just think his win over Gallagher looks even more impressive now, but I'd love to see that rematch.
All right, let's move on. The UFC is back in action this week. We've got the main event. This is the main event, right? Marlon Moraes taking on our guy, Cory the Sandman Sandhagen. How do you see this fight? Obviously, Cory's coming off that disappointing loss. How do you see this fight going down?
I think Cory's going to try and be really technical in this fight. I think he's going to use his footwork. He's going to try and stay on the outside. He's going to try and make Marlon miss early and really try and wear him out and make this kind of a fight where not a lot of strikes land. I think, if Cory's winning this fight, it should be really boring to the casual fan. Marlon Moraes is going to try and make this a brawl. I think Marlon Moraes has the huge power advantage. I think he has the advantage in the clinch, the advantage on the ground. I think the dirtier, grimier, more closely contested this fight is, the better it is for Marlon Moraes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. It'll be interesting to see how Cory Sandhagen returns. Who did Marlon Moraes fight last? Aldo? Is that his last fight?
No, he has a win since then.
Does he?
I believe so.
Yeah, because Sandhagen's coming off the loss to Aljo, which he really didn't get a chance to get into that fight. And I thought Marlon's last fight was Jose Aldo, where he won the...
Oh, you're right. It is Jose Aldo. So he beat Asuncao, he lost to Cejudo, and then he beat Aldo.
Yeah, so this is a big fight. I mean, this has got to be the number one contender fight, right?
So, I mean, I guess, but like, I don't, if Cory Sandhagen wins this, he can't jump Aljo. And then
well,
if
Aljo
wins this,
and Peter Yan are already slotted to fight, right? Later this year.
Is that booked? I don't think that's
I think
booked.
they're talking about it for either the November or the December card. Maybe the last pay-per-view of the year. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But, yeah, I think you got to make that fight. That's your clear-cut title fight. And then, I mean, this has got to be your number one contender fight. And I think...
That's fine by me then.
Yeah. And for Cory, I think we didn't get to see what he had to offer against Aljamain Sterling. He just got put in a bad position early and never really got a chance to get started. But we've talked about this guy at length. We're really high on this guy. He's kind of like a mix between Dominic Cruz and Tony Ferguson and John Jones. He's like this just like prodigy MMA kid. And, I think he's got a huge ceiling in this division. And then what Marlon brings, So this should be a really fun fight.
So who you got?
I'm going to go Cory Sandhagen by decision. I think this is going to be a back and forth fight, but I think Cory's going to grind it out. Cory's tough, resilient. Like I said, he's well-rounded. I got Cory Sandhagen.
All right,
You?
I'm taking the Magic Man, Marlon Moraes.
Okay.
I'm going to go round 2 knockout, honestly. I don't think Cory's faced someone who hits like Marlon hits, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe John Lineker, but
Yeah.
I just think Marlon is kind of a different animal in there. This is a guy he's seen everything. He's been around the block. He's got great Muay Thai. He's got great jiu-jitsu. I don't know that there's a more complete fighter in this sport than Marlon Moraes.
Right. All right. Any more notable fights on this card this weekend?
Here's my deep cut for you. I know everybody loves these, right?
We love the deep cuts.
So Dricus Duplessis.
Jesus,
He's
you did
the
good on that
former KSW welterweight champion. He's fighting Marcus Perez on the main card, and he's the only man to beat current KSW welterweight champion Roberto Soldic in the KSW cage. I believe that Roberto Soldic is one of the best, if not the best, welterweight outside the UFC. Dricus Duplessis beat him. So I am really looking out for this weekend. I'm most excited about that fight on the entire card.
Okay, I got one for you. This is way, way down the prelims. My guy, Giga Chizagi? How do you say his last name?
Chikadze.
Chikadze. Where he's head striking coach somewhere in Abu Dhabi. But he fought on one of the first Fight Island cards against, let me see here. Maybe Jamal Emmers? No, it was on an Overeem card. So, yeah, against Erwin Rivera. This dude's striking's fucking incredible. Really, really good striker, so keep an eye out on him. He's like the third fight on the prelims, but that's my deep cut for the week, Billy. All right, let's get into some current events. We got probably 15, 20 minutes here, and then we're going to get on to the Frank Mir interview. So, Billy, Conor versus Dustin 2. Looks like we're getting very, very close. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is real, man. I think this is real. I think Conor and Dustin are putting the pressure on the UFC to make this happen. I think it makes sense. I think Conor very clearly wants to fight this year and doesn't care who it is. I think Dustin wants to get revenge on Conor. I think this fight's going to happen December 12th is my guess.
December 12th. So that's the card that Usman and Burns fell out of?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the Amanda Nunes card? Let me see. UFC schedule. Let's see here. 254 is Khabib. 255. No, they don't even have it on here. Come on, UFC, get better. Yeah, I agree. I think this happens before the end of the year. I think the UFC couldn't pull Tony and Dustin together. Conor's looking for a dance partner. It's, two of the best 4 lightweights on the planet. It's going to be interesting to see. Conor's going to have to go down to 155 again. I mean, they're not going to fight this at 170.
100%.
So, yeah,
100%.
That'll be interesting. And then I think that's your clear-cut number 1 contender, right?
Clear as day to me. I don't see any way. I mean, if Dustin Poirier beats Conor McGregor, or if he fights Tony Ferguson and beats him, or if he fights Michael Chandler and beat him, how do you deny this man at this point in his career?
Of another title shot?
Right. And then with Conor wins. I mean, they can't hand out title shots to Conor McGregor fast enough. Yeah. So, I think either way, the guy who wins this fight is going to fight for the title next.
So, obviously, in Dana's mind, he wants to make Conor versus Khabib, too. Obviously, Khabib's got to get past Justin first. Do you think it's too big of a risk to throw him in there with Dustin?
I think it gives legitimacy to Conor fighting for another title, right?
Yeah.
I think, Dustin is considered, at your absolute lowest, right? If you're, this is not how I would rank it, but say like you're just not a Dustin fan or whatever, at the absolute lowest, it would go Khabib, Gaethje, Ferguson, Dustin. Yeah. You can't say Dustin is lower than the 4th best lightweight on the planet. If Conor beats him, I think they're going to, it gives legitimacy to Conor getting a title shot, right?
So you think if they book that, then you make Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler?
Bingo.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's freaking awesome. All right. So let's move on here. Usman Burns apparently off. I guess Usman needs a little more time. So we're back to Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards still without a fight. Hasn't fought since I saw him live.
Wait. I'm not even going to let you finish this question. I got something to say about Leon Edwards. I'm very frustrated with this man right now.
Take a fight.
Leon Edwards is he's a phenomenal fighter. He's exciting. He's good on the microphone. He is a phenomenal fighter, would be a phenomenal ambassador for British MMA, could potentially be welterweight champion someday. This man has not fought in over a year, and he's saying everybody doesn't want to fight him. He's got a former 2-time title challenger and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson knocking on his goddamn doorstep, and he's not doing a damn thing about it, Parker. He won't take the fight. He's actively avoiding it. He's acting like he had a title shot already lined up, which has literally never happened. Your time passed. Gilbert Burns ate your goddamn lunch over the course of this 100%. Pandemic, and you need to get in there and you need to take a fight against one of these contenders and earn your way back to that number 1 spot because you lost it. And I 100%. Never talk like this, and I never criticize fighters like this, but Leon Edwards is pissing me off because I'm frustrated seeing him squander this opportunity to get his chance to prove he's the best welterweight in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Take a fight or you may get cut. If you're not going to fight, what are you doing? Wonderboy is sitting there. Wonderboy's a big name, a big test. Take the fight. If you make Wonderboy look stupid, you're undeniable. I mean, you're gonna get the next title shot. But look, I agree. Gilbert Burns has capitalized on the COVID situation. The dude's fought 4 times since Leon Edwards fought in July of 2019. So, yeah, fight. Quit talking shit.
Tyron Woodley has fought twice, and his body is held together with duct tape and chalk at this point.
Nate Diaz has fought 2 times since Leon Edwards has fought. Come on, fight, or just he's gonna get cut if he doesn't fight. 100%. And we're gonna see him as a welterweight champ in Bellator.
They're not offering him up Khamzat Chimaev and saying, "Hey, take this unranked guy," right? Wonderboy is, I believe, the number 6 ranked welterweight contender. He's a 2-time former title challenger. Oh, and by the way, he's on the wrong side of 35. And in his last fight, he took his first knockout of his career. Like, that is the easiest money that you're getting in the top 10 of the UFC right now. And Leon Edwards still doesn't want it. Like, at what point do we just sit there and say, like, Dana always says this, and I always think it's bullshit, but this guy does not want to actually fight. He just doesn't.
I agree. I mean, you look at the rest of the welterweight division is going to pass him by. Especially with the big names there. You've got Usman, you've got Colby, you've got Burns, you've got Masvidal, you've got Nate Diaz hanging around. Like, take a fight. Take a fight, or just don't fight. I don't know. I don't know what else you could do.
I'm so fired up about that situation. I'm beyond upset.
All right, let's talk about a little lighter topic. Another one of our favorite Brits here. Darren Till and Mike Perry have one of the best relationships in MMA. Darren Till has offered $5,000 to corner Mike Perry. What do you think about the offer from Darren Till there?
So Mike Perry, number one, I mean, after his last post-fight interview, Parker, this guy's got to owe back taxes, right? That's 100% what's going on. Has to be. Number two, Mike Perry, accidental genius, auctioning off his cornerman spots. That's incredible. Third of all, how about not just Darren Till, but you saw the webcam company that offered up $10,000 for him to take a cam girl in the corner, and his Mike Perry's baby mama was immediately like, absolutely not.
Oh my God. We got to get Mike Perry on the show.
This is a 3-ring circus.
Mike Perry's a gem. He's a gem to MMA. One of a kind. But, yeah, I'm down for Darren Till in his corner. I think that'd be helpful. They can be talking shit the whole time. Darren Till hitting on his baby mama, and let's go. That's must-watch TV, especially in COVID with no crowd, and you can hear the corner. It's awesome.
Raw Dog Nation.
Raw Dog Nation. All right. We talked about the Izzy John Jones beef. Yeah, that got a little dark. Honestly, I think Izzy's bored in quarantine, and John Jones is off cocaine. So, yeah, I don't know. What did you think of their online Twitter beef that went back and forth for the last, 2 to 3 weeks?
I'm already bored with it, man. I just don't. I don't like when like the families get involved. I just think it's like if you want to be personal about it and like I'm gonna fight you, Park, I'll come after you. I'm not gonna come after your family. Like,
yeah, it gets weird.
Like, I'm not fighting. Izzy, you're not fighting his mom, right? Like, John, you're not fighting Izzy's dad. Like, don't bring it up. Like, it's not enjoyable to watch. I'm kind of bored with this. I don't think either of them actually wants to fight each other is the funny thing.
I don't either.
I just don't think I don't find it compelling. So I'm kind of over it.
I think they will fight. I just don't think the time is right now. So we'll see how this builds up. But yeah, I think this is a huge fight. Maybe this time next year, but I think it's a little early, and we'll see how it pans out. All right, our last current event. Our guy Tony Ferguson goes off on the UFC, on the lightweight division, on the welterweights, on the whole roster. Tony Ferguson wants a fight, and he wants it now. What are we doing? Why are we not letting El Kukui fight?
Pay the man. It's the same reason always, Parker. Pay the man. He's one of the most exciting fighters in the sport. He's one of the most compelling personalities in MMA. If Dustin is going to fight Conor, book Tony versus Chandler and pay him. Like, period. I love the Dustin versus Tony fight. I think that's a perfect fight. But, I can't take away the red panty night from Dustin Poirier. So let Tony fight Michael Chandler, pay the man. Let's get on with the El Kukui era, because this guy is as fun as anyone to watch fight in a cage.
Yeah, he's the best. All right. Is that it? Wow. Oh, hey, you hold any weight on Tony going up to light heavyweight or middleweight or welterweight?
I could actually, you know what? He fought at the Ultimate Fighter at welterweight.
Yeah.
I think for the right matchup, I could see Tony Ferguson going up to welterweight. Genuinely.
I could too.
And I don't think his style, I don't think he slows down at all going to welterweight. I think he'd be just fine. You know what? It's like totally an out there fight, but would be very entertaining.
Yes.
How about Tony Ferguson against Khamzat Chimaev?
Oh my God. Sign me up, Billy. Take all my money. Yes.
Absolute
Billy,
madman fight. It's a madman fight.
Will you please tweet Sean Shelby right now and suggest that? Surely someone's floated that in the war room. That's a great fight. I've always wanted to see Tony against Nate. You look at the situation right now, and it's again I think Nate's going to be left behind now because it seems like Jorge's fighting Colby, Conor's fighting Dustin. Tony versus Nate's a phenomenal matchup.
Oh, but that's a doctor stoppage waiting to happen, and you know it. Tony Ferguson elbows and Nate Diaz scar tissue do not mix. I do not need to see that.
We need to have that fight in Chechnya and just that fight to the death. No doctor stoppages allowed. All right. I think that's our fastest episode ever. 45 minutes, Billy. We were moving today. We're going to take a little break.
What about our full KSW 55 preview you promised me we were going to do?
Relax. We're going to have to get one in Russian. We're going to have to bring a translator in here and pander to our Russian audience. But episode 50, me and Billy are coming back with a big interview here later on tonight. Frank Mir, the great and powerful Frank Mir, coming on the show. So we'll be back about 15 to 20 minutes, and both episodes will be live tomorrow. So, Billy, onwards to episode 50.
Texas Trees is the premier tree care company in the DFW area. Whether you need basic maintenance or specialized services, when it comes to trees, we've got you covered. Pruning, chipping, bracing, and cabling, even root barriers and disease control, we do it all. And if you aren't sure what you need, we have certified arborists on staff to point you in the right direction. Visit us at northtexastrees.net. That's northtexastrees.net. Thanks for listening to Parker's MMA Show. Take a moment to rate and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcast. And visit ParkerKeen'sMMAShow.podbean.com for additional information on Parker and to stay up to date on the latest drama in the fight world. For more information and important links about today's episode, check out the show notes.